getting really clear on your future self-image, because you will never outperform your own self-image. Getting clear on who is that person, who do I need to become, what do they believe, how do they think, what are their habits, what are the things they're doing every day, and how do I start to be her or him now?
Welcome to Limitless Minds, the podcast where curiosity meets greatness. If you're ready to discover what it takes to be truly limitless and push beyond your own limits, you're in the right place.
Welcome back, Travis. Here we are, ready to roll another amazing episode of Success Leaves Clues. I don't know if your Nooch Nugget has to deal with the March Madness brackets. My youngest son, who filled out a bracket for the first time this year, he's not very neutral about his bracket.
No.
He's just like, why did I have St. Louis in the Final Four? I got sucked into Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Yeah, as you would.
In the hype. But here we are. We got a wonderful guest today. We're gonna today, one of the things that we're gonna do is we're gonna dive into the psychology of sport, and really how you handle performing in front of 10 to 15,000 people on a half-inch blade of steel.
Yes.
Not Blades of Steel, Will Ferrell movie, but very similar. Very similar.
Yeah.
So we're gonna deal with that today in honor of the Winter Olympics, which ended about a month and a half ago. We're right on top of it. On top of it,
which
Travis.
just means that they're coming now. We're getting ahead of the next Olympics, Josh.
Oh, that's okay. Maybe we're getting ahead of the World Championships because they have the World Championships every 4 years as well, but they're in 2 years.
Yeah.
So
and we're just, we're just in a sports equinox. We're in the March Madness tournament, Josh. We've got baseball is kicking off. Hockey playoffs are less than a month away. The Masters is 2 weeks away. NBA
playoffs are about a month. This is really close to.
Yes, this glorious day. So the fact that we get to talk mental performance today with an amazing athlete is going to be a ton of fun.
Yes, it will be. But before we get to talk to her, we got to get ourselves clean, and we got to just come correct with our neutral nuggets.
Yeah.
And just explain to the audience, how what's going on? What are we seeing out there that's neutral? What are we doing ourselves that's neutral? And so I'm gonna go first because I know I have a sense of what yours is, but because we had an interesting travel situation happen. But my neutral nugget is from the world of sport, and it is from the English Premier League and a team that I love near and dear to my heart, the Gooners.
The Gooners,
Arsenal Football Club. Arsenal is in North London forever. I won't sing it for you because it would make your ears bleed. We've been singing a lot on the pod lately, haven't we? We sung last week too.
Right, and I am horrible. But it's like it's an expression of joy.
Horrible is a judgment. We're gonna stay neutral. We are off tone. We are off key. That being said,
say that we don't even know what a key is.
I would agree.
Yeah.
I would agree. I know there's something called a treble clef.
I remember it, but I don't know what it means.
Yeah, ditto. Yeah. And I know maybe there's treble clef and bass clef, I would think. I don't know.
Yeah.
But we did. It's funny because we recently talked about denouement, which is a musical term. So, we're all over it. Here's the deal. Arsenal is in the Carabao, which we talked about, Cup final.
Energy drink,
which we know now, not motor oil.
Nope.
And it's their chance for their first trophy since 2020. So, very exciting times. And they get smoked, bro. 2-0. It was worse than that. It was worse than 2-0. Could have easily been 3. However, they were under it. There was a period of probably about 6 minutes where they didn't even touch the ball.
Yeah.
And Manchester City, who is a team, historically phenomenal team, which has bajillions of dollars and just goes out and is like, we're not doing so well this year. Let's just go buy a bunch of players. So they do that. They have the best manager in the world, Pep Guardiola, and they smoked us. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. They smoked us. That being said, what was neutral, what was really interesting is the response. So when you're going for your first trophy and you lose, first trophy in a while, and you lose, there's 2 ways, and I'm very interested to see how this plays out. Now they have an international break, so they get a little time to recover. But, the commentary wasn't like blaming others. It wasn't like, if this, if that, referee this. No, it was like, we got beat. and we're going to use this as fuel. And we're going to use this as fuel for the last, 7 weeks of the season, because this is the most important part of the season. We're going to lock it in. We're going to use this. We're going to learn from it. We're going to grow from it, and we're going to go. And what's interesting about that, like, I get this question. I don't know if you've ever gotten this question, but like, what's the difference, Josh, between neutral and growth mindset?
That's good. Yeah.
I've gotten that question a lot. And my answer is always this: in order to get to a growth mindset, you got to get neutral first.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right. You can't, you got to get to this place of like, there is no judgment. I want to improve. So these are the things I'm going to have to do A, B, and C. I'm going to have to learn from failure. I'm going to have to be inspired by others. I'm going to have to work hard, like all those different things. So that's my answer to that. So for me, Arsenal Football Club was a great example of neutrality after getting absolutely smoked in the Carabao Cup final, which was heartbreaking to watch and really tough, their response to it. So
it'd be great to see how they use that as fuel for the last 7 weeks of the Prem season. Yeah. Very cool.
I'm going to dip that in malt vinegar for the fish and chips. Like in England, you do the malt vinegar. So you do the malt vinegar.
I like that. Some malt vinegar. Well played. Yeah. A little bit of kick to the nasal, right? That the vinegar.
You sound like you need that today.
Yeah, a little bit. We won't get into that. Stay neutral. All right, my neutral.
What is your new nugget? Because I'm curious. I mean, you got a couple to choose from this week.
All right, yeah. So we'll keep it. We'll keep it personal to, and obviously about this, but the Limitless Minds team was in Vegas last week working with a client, and this was an important function for us to be at. And I was down in South Florida, and I had a nice direct flight on Monday from Fort Lauderdale to Vegas. Get in the day early, no problem. Have time to relax, and then I wake up because of the storms in the Midwest and then on the Northeast, and then with the TSA debacle that we have right now. Flights just were getting canceled left and right.
Is that what we're calling it, a debacle?
I'm just going to call it a debacle. That's neutral enough, right? A debacle. So my flight gets canceled. I'm like, all right, whatever. So I book another flight on another airline. That quickly gets canceled. And now I'm looking at like other airports. I'm looking at Miami. I'm looking at West Palm Beach. And I'm like, okay, there's nothing. And then I'm like, all right, Orlando. Orlando's a 2-hour drive away. I can take the train up to Orlando and fly out Monday night. That's what I'm going to do. I booked that ticket, and immediately it says, well, that flight is delayed 10 hours. Well, that's not going to work because it's a connection. No. And so I'm like, emotionally, we talk about neutral. It's not about controlling your emotions. Like I was frustrated. I was discouraged. I was a little, like nervous from the fact that my wife was sitting there. I was like, I don't think I'm going to be able to get out there. Like I'm literally running out of options. So having to sort of be with my feelings and my emotions, but trying to like find a way, right? Like trying to keep finding a way. And she goes, I found a flight out of Atlanta tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. direct into Vegas. The event starts at 10. You land at 8. If it's on time, you'll make it. And I was like, all right, Atlanta, cool. There's tons of flights out of West Palm Beach to Atlanta every day. I get on, nothing. They're all sold out or they're canceled. I was like, well, I guess I could rent a one-way car rental and drive the 8.5 hours from West Palm Beach to Atlanta, get there in the middle of the night, and then fly out. Yeah. And so that's what I did, Josh. So
when you got to Atlanta, I never asked you this question. What time did you arrive in Atlanta? And then what did you do when you got to Atlanta? Did you do a hotel? Did you just like curl it up in a Delta lounge? What did you do?
Yeah. Neither. I wish I could have gone to a Delta lounge. It was 1 a.m. when I got there. And then, some of these horror stories with security lines and things like that. And it was a 6 a.m. flight. And I was like, they have one security gate open in the middle of the night. And so I'm like, my goal is get through security. Once I'm through security, then I don't have to worry about, right. And so got there around 1:30. It took me about 30 minutes to go through security. And I'm like, all right, got 3 hours. And I just went to the food court and I did some work. I put my head down. That didn't work. And I just like, all right, got some work done and flew out on time. The flight left on time. I was maybe able to sleep 2 hours on the plane, landed at 8, got to the hotel, saw you, was able to set the room up, take a quick shower, refresh, and then do the workshop. But the thing that
for those of you listening, by the way, this workshop was not just like an hour to 2 hours. It was a 5 hour. We had a 5 hour workshop.
Yeah.
And we were alone. We weren't like, it wasn't like Travis and I were co-presenting, which we've done before, which is always like, you can lean on the other person a little bit and you can kind of like, hey, bro, I'm hurting today. Help me out, No, he was in his own room, just finding a way.
Just running on adrenaline. And so the neutral aspect was, again, you can argue with reality or you can sort of keep pivoting and responding. And again, even though my emotions weren't great, it was still, all right, what can I do now? What can I do now? What can I do now? And I remember, I was driving up to Atlanta, 8.5 hours by myself in the car. And I'm thinking to myself, like, all right, I'm doing all this effort to get to Atlanta. There's no guarantee that my flight's going to take off on time.
No, there isn't.
Or that it's not even going to get canceled as well. And so I remember driving. I'm like, all right, I just have to be at peace. I just have to be at peace with the fact that this might not work out. But have I done everything that I can do? I've done everything that I can do. And if it doesn't work out, well, then it just doesn't work out. And I have to be okay with that. And so,
a little bit of surrender.
Yeah, a ton of, exactly. Surrender and release, right? I love thinking about like fishing, like catch and release fishing, which is like, oh, I caught, there's that frustration. Oh, there's the anger. I caught it. Now I'm going to de-hook it, right? And release it, so like just to keep catching those feelings and those emotions. Yeah. Release, surrender. And so, so that was my nooch nugget. And I'm dipping it, Josh, in some Varsity ketchup, some Varsity Cafe ketchup, which of course is out of Atlanta, Georgia.
That's where you're at. Yeah. Terminal E, for those of you who don't know. Is it E or F? I don't remember.
Yes. Yeah. Where is the Varsity Cafe?
That's amazing, dude. That's amazing. And I think, all of us at the conference were just like, it was really funny because it was just like, man, this is insane. And then we were like, oh yeah, but it's Travis. He's going to find a way. Like, so that's a credit to your consistency and your professionalism. But it's also like, I didn't know you slept at the airport, man. I thought you got up to Atlanta at like 10 p.m. Slept in
my wife was like,
she's like,
the
next morning.
She didn't know that was my plan either, because she's like, I wondered why you didn't leave until like 4:00. She's like, he's gonna get a hotel at 2:00 in the morning, and I was like, oh no, I didn't. Originally, I was gonna get there, maybe sleep in the car for 2 hours, but then I got to the airport and I'm like, I don't want to play around. I don't want to play around with security. So just get in there.
I've only in my whatever. I've been traveling now a ton for, I would say, the last 12 years. And the only time I've only gotten caught in Atlanta twice where I missed my flight because of a connection or whatever. And, I just got the hotel. So that's only happened to me twice. But when I was young, when I was in my 20s and I was looking at graduate schools, I went to Knoxville, Tennessee. I was looking at the University of Tennessee, and I was flying back to New York City. I was living in New York at the time, and I flew through Atlanta, and I missed my connection, so I was going to have to get the next one at like 6 a.m. So I slept in the Atlanta airport that night, and the only thing I remember is I was lying underneath. I was lying like this. I'm like 26 years old, so it's like whatever, and I'm lying underneath row of benches, and I just keep hearing the security alert. If you see something, say something. Every 20 minutes, it would just blast off. And I was just like, I'm just trying to sleep, man. I don't want to see anything other than the back of my eyelids. But that's my only experience of sleeping in Atlanta airport. But you didn't really sleep. So that's good.
No.
When you finally did go to sleep, what time did you hit the bed we were in the beautiful Venetian. First of all, did you take a gondola back to your room or did you walk?
I walked. I did. Yes. The gondolas were full. Once I eventually got to bed with the time change and everything, we finished up. I went and grabbed something to eat. It's funny. I went and grabbed something to eat real quick. It was the World Baseball Classic final. So I'm like at the bar watching the WBC final, and I'm like, all right, now it's just time to go back, crash. And then, cause I was flying out the next morning to Minneapolis. And as I was walking back to the hotel, I'm like, oh, there it is. I'm just like, whoa. I'm like, whoa, I need to get, I got back to the hotel. I was like, I need to make sure I'm packed. So I wake up in the morning, I'm good to go. And then I was just like having a heart. It hit me like a brick. So
that's awesome. Yeah. You probably like, the funny thing about the Venetian, I don't know about you, but it literally took me like a half an hour to figure out how to shut the lights off. Like I couldn't.
Yeah.
I was like, wait, how do I close the curtain? You got to press buttons on the wall to close the curtain.
Yeah.
So
Well,
funny.
I will tell you this funny side note. During the World Cup in Qatar, right? We were in a really, really nice hotel, and we were in the same hotel. We were in the same hotel for 28 days, and I could not figure out how to turn the light off in my room. And for 28 days, I just went to bed every night with the light on.
You know, I'm just gonna call you out for being like, you know, you can just ask somebody, bro, at that point. Like
Yeah,
just
I know.
concierge people.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I was like, I'm good. I'm good. I also don't like, like my ego didn't want to.
There it
How do you
is.
turn the
That's
light?
the exact opposite of
Hi,
staying neutral, by the way.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Not growth mindset. That would be fixed
By
mindset.
the way, do you know how you do it? You know how you shut the lights off in Qatar?
Yeah, that's what I didn't try
The
clapping.
clapper. It's everything's hooked up to the
I
clapper.
didn't try clapping. All right, Josh. Speaking of clapping, right? We are clapping for our guest today because she is amazing. Who do we got?
We have Caitlin Good. Caitlin Good is not only one of our amazing room tilters, but she's also a former world championship level ice dancer. She competed for the countries of Canada and Denmark, and we're going to dive into that a little bit more and kind of just talk to her about what it was like to like think about it. You're dancing on ice, like legitimately ice dancing. You're doing it on ice skates, which you know it's like that's you know, it's on ice. Like, so I don't even like the comprehension of this is beyond me. So
Swords.
I'm
You're
very
on swords. Yeah.
so excited to talk to Caitlin again. She competed for the countries of Canada and Denmark at the highest levels, and so we're going to dive into that with her today.
Welcome, Caitlin Good, and welcome to the Limitless Minds podcast, Kate.
Thank you for having me, Josh and Travis.
And we have to say congratulations, and on your recent marriage. And again, the pictures were spectacular. If you don't mind, or we don't want to give away too many details, Kate, but if you don't mind, what was the theme? And just paint the picture of the wedding a little bit for us.
Wow. Okay. I'm not expecting to go into this on today, but it was a winter wedding. So we got married just at the end of February. And with my ice skating background, we decided to actually get married on a frozen lake. So we had skates on, he had hockey skates on. We had 40 of our closest friends like on the bank of the ice rink that they shoveled for us. But the morning of, it was like pouring rain, crazy winds. And my wedding planner was like, this is not going to happen. I was like, yes, it is. It is happening on the ice and like
neutral out of the gate. I love it.
Exactly. And I had like put that into the universe and visualized every moment of that day over and over, like using all my performance techniques. And then 30 minutes before the ceremony, the sun came up, the winds died down. I was like,
Of course it did.
I will be walking on this ice. And it was very cute. My dad put on his skates and skated me down the aisle. And it was just a moment. So yeah.
That is awesome. Awesome.
It's what's amazing though, Travis, that tracks, right? That tracks because you started like I was just looking on your LinkedIn and like you started skating when you were 3,
Years
which
old, yeah.
For those of us in America, that's insane. For those of you in Canada, that's just like the average person.
In Canada, that's a late start, isn't it? Like, wow, you waited until she was 3? What's the matter with you?
But obviously that was just you know like you're a kid, you get put in the skates and stuff like that. But like, when did you start like really quote unquote competing? Did you start with classical figure skating and then move into ice dancing, or was it always ice dancing? How did that work for you?
So, like most kids in Canada, we get put on the ice because that's what you do. But honestly, I was a really late bloomer. I was never that kid that you were like, that she's gonna make it. I was like the last one on the line. They're like, keep going, honey. You are doing great.
Like doing great with like, and you're just like, you're lying to me. You're so lying to me.
Totally. But I honestly just loved the sport so much. I love skating. I would do my little axles down the aisle in the grocery store. Like I would had a little spinner at home that every day after skating, I'd come home and turn on it. Like I just really wanted to be the best that I could. But no, to answer your question, I did not start in ice dance. I started actually in singles. I was not very good at jumping, so that was not going to go far. But I was able to, at least I got one triple in, but that was it. But I could never do it in competition. That's a whole other story we can go down, where actually my initial intro into visualization and things actually started because of that. But I went into synchronized skating, which is essentially you have 16 girls on the ice performing. I really excelled at that, became captain of the team, strongest skater on the team. And when we won a silver medal at the World Championships and I saw Les Suprêmes, I had the flag lifting and I was like, oh, okay, I really want my name up there. And that's really where the dream of ice dance came, because at that point in time, and still to today, synchronized skating is not an Olympic sport. And that was always the dream. And so for me, I had to have a really tough decision to make, which was, do I stay at something I'm excellent at, or do I if the goal is something different, how do I change my behavior to get the thing that I want? And so ice dancing is a very, very different discipline. You go from skating with 16 other girls to skating with one man, to totally different sport, totally different needs, totally different level of pressure and different environment. And so it was really that starting from new, actually, and being able to go back to being a beginner again and having the courage to do that. And ultimately the belief. And I think an important piece of that story is surrounded around identity. And that's why a lot of the work that I do today is around identity and beliefs and getting underneath the stories that we tell ourselves. Because I think without truly believing that I could be an ice dancer and that I am one and I am capable of this, I don't think that I could have made that transition into ice dance from synchronized skating.
How old were you when you had to make that decision, that transition?
I was 17.
Okay.
Mhm.
So yeah, so you've been in the game for a while at that point. And so is that normal to sort of shift at that age, or what was that like?
No, most people start ice dance a lot earlier, and most skaters have. Even if you look at the teams that were competing this year in the Olympics, they have been skating together for 17 years. And so for me, coming in at that late in the game was one a risk. The chance of actually that happening was very slim, because not only are you dependent on yourself and your ability, you then have to find a partner who matches your height, your weight, your style of skating, just the connection and the chemistry between the two of you. And so putting that goal out there was quite a lofty feat. Um, but I owe actually a lot also to my mom. She drove me all around the US, all around Canada, trying to find a partner, because there are so few men and so many girls that want to achieve that. And so you really have to be okay with handling an immense amount of rejection, criticism,
Mm.
that is not just on your skating skills, but your look, your weight, your everything in between, your hair color, all is up for grabs ultimately. And so that was a very challenging time, but I ultimately had a deep belief that I knew that it would happen.
So is that kind of how you got through all that rejection and stuff, was just kind of keeping coming back to, look, I know I can do this and I believe in myself and I'm not stopping until, somebody rips the skates off my legs. Is that kind of how, like, was that kind of your mindset? And it was like, okay, we'll just keep going. Okay, we didn't find one. Let's just keep going, mom. Let's go,
Yeah. It started, I think at the root of all of that was an identity shift, and and deciding, because I really believe that our beliefs are simply just stories, right? Stories that we've told over and over and over with a lot of repetition. At one point in time, I was a synchronized skater and I thought I was only good enough to do that. And then when I decided, no, like I have the ability to perform at a world level as an ice dancer and identify as that, it was that shift that I think is what really created the velocity and the momentum that I needed, and to go back to that. And I did that in a few different ways. One is becoming aware of the story that I had told myself, that I was a synchronized skater as an ice dancer. That's step one. And two, I used a lot of journaling and I am statements,
Mm.
because for me, and I use the writing, because there's one thing just to say it out loud, but you actually, if your brain does not believe that, it will create an incongruence, and that just creates friction and ultimately then doesn't help that to come true. And so I had to really start getting underneath of what are the things that make an ice dancer, and all of those was power, was elegance, was the ability to have and create chemistry and emotion and make the audience feel something. And I knew all of those things in my skating, in synchronized skating. I was very good at those. And so how do you take the things where you do have evidence of other components of the things that you're trying to build here, and starting to build this kind of vault of evidence that I had to base my belief upon.
At what point, Kate, in your skating, did you start to appreciate or explore sort of the mental side of things? You had said earlier that landing the one triple is when your introduction into visualization. Like, how old were you at that point, and had you been considering sort of the mental side of things at that point, or when did that begin for you?
So that began when I was around 14. So in skating, you have these different tests. You have like pre-novice, novice, junior, senior, and it goes up the ranks. And there was this pre-novice test that I just could not pass for the life of me. Every time that I tried to do it, I just fell on everything and just completely failed. And so my mom actually hired this visualization coach at the time. So I would have been around 14 to kind of, this sounds super weird looking back, but essentially, like, we sat in a dark room in my house in the basement. I was like, I look back now, I'm like, Mom, that was maybe a collision with this, like,
Go in the basement with a stranger.
yeah, weird.
Yeah.
But it really worked. And what we came to was, again, I just didn't believe that I was a novice skater. So going from pre-novice to novice. And ultimately what we decided to do was just, well, why do I need the pre-novice test? I can just jump over it. But that was my first introduction to visualization, because he helped me see, because I kept falling every time. Like, a lot of athletes know that they should do visualization. They close their eyes, they try to see it, but I kept falling. And what I learned through that process was, like, you are the narrator, you are the director of that movie, and you can choose what happens. That, or using the fall and teaching your brain, okay, if we do have this mistake in the program, how do we respond in that moment, so that when it does happen, or if it does happen in real life, your brain is more primed to be able to respond in the right way.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think learning those skills young too, like, is so huge. I get often asked by parents of youth sport athletes and things like that, when's too early to start. Well, just depends on how well you can connect with the athlete. But honestly, to get those skills in early, hey, you're visualizing at 14, that's unbelievable. And that's a skill I'm sure you've used for the rest of your life in pretty much everything you do. Um,
Everything, yeah. It is, and it's definitely not reserved for athletes. I think that's a
no.
huge misconception. I believe that it's really just for athletes to do their performance. I use visualization today in every element of my life, from getting parking to before this call to, seriously, to, like, a conversation I need to have with my partner, to things that I want to have happen with my kids. Like, visualization is one of our most powerful built-in mechanisms that we all have access to. And if you can unlock the power of it, it is just insane how quickly your life will change, because it's giving your mind new evidence, new data to filter from and to work from. And ultimately, our brains, their number one job is to protect us, right? And so how do we keep us in the familiar? And if you use visualization, those scenes, those experiences start to become what your brain sees as familiar, because it does not distinguish the difference between what's real and what's imagined. It has no idea the difference. And there's some really fascinating studies that I'm sure the two of you are well aware of, that reinforce that, where people have grown their biceps strength and diameter by 13% by just closing their eyes and visualizing themselves doing biceps curls for 8 weeks, which is, if you think about that, that is just fascinating and incredible, the power of that, of our minds. And so I have used it in so many aspects of my life, so the birth of my kid, like, you name it, I use it for it.
That's awesome. Can you help? Speaking of visualization, can you help our audience kind of understand what it takes to be an elite performer at a world class level? So, can you just kind of take us through a day in the life of ice dancing as you're training, or even a competition week? Like, hey, you're training, and this is what it looks like on a daily basis.
Yes. It is not what it seems. No.
Yeah, because I think that's one of the things that I get a lot, right? Like, people think pro sports is like super sexy and awesome, but it is a grind.
It is, and you have to become very okay with doing the same thing over and over and over, and that repetition is so critical. And so a day, let's say we usually train around 8 hours a day. 2 to 3 of that is on two sessions of 2 hours. So you're doing everything from elements, run-throughs, lifts, all the on-ice work. Then
Speak to elements for a second. What is an element?
So an element in ice dance, there are a few. You have twizzles, which is when you see them, like, twizzling side by side.
That was a good twizzle. I like that. I got that.
Exactly what it sounds like. Twizzles. Yeah.
This is where you see most people at the highest level make mistakes still. It is one of the hardest elements to do, and where a lot of pressure happens because you are by yourself. You're also watching the other person rotate beside you, trying to be at the same time. You're on one foot. You have to change multiple directions with different arms and feet movements. And you'll see that at the Olympics, that is where people make mistakes most of the time. And same thing at World Championships, whether you're ready to be on the podium or not. Then you have elements that are like lifts. So that is when usually the male partner lifts the female partner in ice stance. It's not over the head. It's above with the arms extended. It's just like around the head and or like extended out as a cantilever. Then you have spins. It's pretty self-explanatory. Foot sequence where they can be side by side in a circle down the ice, cross. Those are what am I missing? Spin, lift, twizzles, foot sequence. And then you just have like the artistry pieces that come with that, which are like special rotational lifts and things like that. Those are the types of elements that you train, and then they are connected through like artistic movements that make the program come together.
And so you're training those elements over and over and over and over again.
Yes.
For 2 hours.
Correct. And in sequence. So you could do like half of the program or just two elements connected, or the whole program. Then we had like back-to-back days where you do the full 4-minute program twice back-to-back. Those are brutal. Hate those days.
Explain why those are brutal. Because it's like, oh, I get to dance for 4 minutes. And, think about it. Like, why would those be brutal?
They are brutal because when you are performing a program, especially on the ice, it's a mix of both like sport and artistry. And so you have to be in this moment and so present with your partner. And be performing a technical element that has to have this edge for this amount of time, or your head above your foot for X amount of time, or this rotation that you're trying to counteract. And so it's brutal because it is demanding so much of your emotion, your mental, and your physical at the same time over an extended period of time of 4 minutes. So it's not just the cardio of I'm running in 4 minutes, it is my brain working at an immense level of focus and presence to execute these to the highest levels that I can in coordination with the person that I'm now trusting to not drop me on my head or hit me with his skate, right? So there's a piece of that. And then when you've done that program, you're already reflecting on, okay, what could I have done better? Where did I do well? What were the things that could have improved? Oh, I missed this head movement there. And then you have to go and repeat that for another 4 minutes all over again. And so now you're doing that with a level of exhaustion. Your muscles are just spent, but we do that on purpose so that the competition days feel much easier. And so while those training days are very demanding physically, it makes the competition day where what we're trying to do is create an environment of pressure and stress. And so when those competition days come, we have already experienced that. We do that as well with what we call like adversity training or adversity tolerance training, but we do that in our minds. And so that's another element of the training that we do each day, where we would imagine things that could go wrong and how do we get out of those. So something that did happen to me was I always had this fear that my skates wouldn't arrive. We used to have to put our skates under the airplane to fly because they're considered weapons. And so I always was like, what if my skates don't come on time and I cannot skate? And so what I would do is we would visualize these like adversity moments. And then it did happen one time where my skates didn't arrive. And I think that if I hadn't had trained that prior, I would have just been in a bit of a disarray, like not gonna happen. Oh my God, why this happened to me? I can't believe this. You get into this victim mindset very clearly of like, if I need this competition to get into the next one, how am I going to qualify for Worlds if this happens? But in that moment, I was very calm and very back into the facts, which is I am still skating this competition until they call my name and I do not have skates. And so we did our warm-ups, we did our off ice, my partner practiced alone, and literally I think it was about 40 minutes before they were like, our event had started. They physically called our name. The airline brought my suitcase to the arena and we were able to skate. But I think had I not done that adversity training prior and trained the response of like, how do you act in this moment when everything is chaotic and not what it is, because things will always happen on the route to the Olympic Games. And so that's what we spent a lot of time actually creating these environments of pressure and stress and manufacturing these challenging moments and obstacles so that we knew how to.
When Kate, when you look at all the different things that you would do from a mental preparation standpoint, from the adversity training to visualization, you mentioned the journaling and the I am statements. Mm-hmm. Can you talk a little bit more about that? Sort of what were those daily habits and routines that you stuck with or developed over time because they were so valuable?
This is one I actually haven't talked about a lot. And I only recently read something in a book that I was like, oh, that's what I was doing. Like I didn't actually have words to describe it. The book is by Joan Vickers. She's really a pioneer in how to understand the neurobiology of how our brain reacts when you're feeling pressure. And so this was something that I used and that really anyone can use when you are in a high stakes, high pressure moment. So a lot of the time we are told to either an action, move your feet, or you're stay calm or think positively, right? We're given these instructions, but what's happening in our brain is when we're under these high stress moments and our prefrontal cortex are activated, essentially it's like yelling at when you're trying to yelling information when you're trying to accomplish a very complex task. And so what I would do in these situations is I would actually stare into my partner's eyes for 10 to 15 seconds. So just stare at him, really like holding his hand and stare at him. Or I would find a wall, like a piece, like where what I used to like to look at where the ceiling and the wall connected and just fixate on that point. You can do the same on the floor, anywhere, any point. And essentially what I was doing was, she calls this the quiet eye. And what you are doing is you're taking this external focus somewhere else, which what that does in your brain is it allows your attention and focus to go outward versus it being reflected inwards, which calms the area where self-doubt and internal chatter come, which is a very fascinating concept. And so not a lot of people talk about this, but it is something that you can apply even when you have a business meeting or a presentation or a conversation you need to have that has a lot of anticipation around, or you're feeling a lot of anxiety about it. My suggestion would be to find, even if like we're in a conversation right now, let's say that I'm feeling really nervous, is just staring at you and actively listening to the words that you were saying. So taking it out of the internal into the external. So yeah, it's called the quiet eye. And it is a very fascinating concept that I didn't know that I was doing. But I used to do that before every single competition. And people would always ask me like, are you okay? I was just like zoning out a bit, but I was really just focusing on a single point to take my mind out of this wheel that was starting to turn with doubt. So yeah, that was one actually that developed.
In baseball, we call it a focal point. Yeah. So we have the guys look at the top of the foul pole or look for the American flag or whatever. Bat, they would use the trademark on their bat, whatever. And it's exactly that. They just stare at it for a second or two, and it just kind of frees you of the negativity cycle that you're probably starting to get into, and it gets you back to, okay, what am I going to accomplish right now?
Exactly. And it's so cool because it actually calms the areas of your brain that are associated with self-judgment and internal chatter.
Yeah. Awesome. Hey, you know what? We got lost here for a second because we were 2 hours. We were there. We were rocking it. We're doing 2 hours of elements. We're working our performance, right? So we were there, but then we didn't talk about the rest of the day. So curiosity is still peaked. Like, what are you doing off ice? Are you crushing the weight room? Are you doing plyometrics? Like, what kind of things are happening? So that's like on the ice. Obviously, you're working the movements and things of that nature, and I can kind of picture those sequences. But then, what are you doing? Like, is that all, you're just on the ice the whole time, or are you off the ice doing stuff too?
Oh no, you are definitely off the ice as well. So that what makes up the rest of the day. So you have, depending on what the day is, you have many different external coaches. So we'd have people in the gym, we'd have, depending on what the theme of the year is. So we'd work with like hip hop dancers, ballroom dancers.
Oh, wow.
People from the circus of how to lift more, how we'd work with, what are the other ones that we would do? Acting coaches as well, because a lot of it, so many different elements to create a story on the ice. And so we would bring in expertise from all across many different domains to try to build the most complete package that we could bring. The
So
other
you can dance hip hop too, is what you're just trying to tell us? Is that like you could just I love it. Look out.
Oh, Travis. Oh yeah, ballet. Like it really depended on what the theme of the program was. Like we did a Danish folk program, so we had a folk dancer come and teach us like what does traditional dance look like. The other elements that a lot of people don't see are all of the work that we do with our music. So music
Mm.
is such a critical component of the entire delivery, the emotion, and so we have a lot of influence in the music that we choose with our coaches. One thing that people don't know is that judges have a huge influence as well on the music that you choose. And so that was another one that we had to work with. Like you're editing your own music. Like this isn't working. I'm not feeling this here. And so you're working with the music editor to make sure that it speaks to you, it represents you as a couple. And depending on where you are in the quad, so we call a quad the 4 years that lead up to the Olympics, also being aware of like, okay, what are the programs we're going to want to do in those years and how do we work up to those? Is this a program we want to test this year and repeat in 2 years from now? So there's a lot of strategy that actually goes into that selection. And then obviously, like we've talked a little bit about the mental side of it is making sure that that is really dialed in and part of your daily training, both before and after sessions, as well as like we did a lot of work on creating an environment too of how we skate as a team, who is in our circle of support, and getting really clear on what are our blockers. And I think something that was one of the
Mm.
areas for me that was a big unblock is we all have these, as we've talked about a little bit, these stories, these past experiences that we operate on top of. And so how do we clear those things that are actually getting in the way of our performance that you may not know? Most of those are subconscious beliefs that we've been programmed and conditioned to believe by the environment, influencers, our parents, our family, friends, anything we've read, I listened to. And I think a lot of performance is inhibited by those in ways that we don't know. And so really getting underneath a lot of that and learning how to regulate our emotions in these very high stakes environments.
What is the process, Kate, that you would use to challenge beliefs or to try to dig a little bit deeper under what they're connected to?
Oof. That's a very big question. One I'm still working through today. I think that like everyone has those. I have them even today. Like there will always be more to uncover. The process that has worked for me, one is to become aware of what are those? What are the stories that you are telling yourself? Right? What are those potential beliefs? Have done this process where you go back actually into different elements of your childhood. So like 0 to 18, where like trust and safety is created. You have 18 months to 3 years, 3 to 5, 5 to 13, 13 to 21, and going back into those times of your life and trying to understand like what are those past experiences that I pull back from, and what are the stories that I'm telling myself here about the experiences that happened there, and what is the belief that is potentially underneath those. So I can give you an example of one that can kind of how do I best describe this? So one of the beliefs that has been relevant for me right now, as I start my own business, was when I was competing, though I was a national champion in 2 different countries and had a world silver medal, and had this belief underneath that I was just almost good enough. So I was almost there, right? Almost there. And so I've seen this pattern come up in a few times, and what I have found that is helps me get to what those beliefs are is where are you being triggered? What in your life like evokes a strong emotion or a strong reaction and you're not exactly sure why? Like either it's somebody says something to you or you're like you really react in a different way. For me, those triggers are signals that there's something there. And so that's where I like to kind of get underneath that. Or the other way I like to look at this is where are you procrastinating, avoiding, and pretending not to know? That is another question I really like to ask because for me in starting this business, I knew that I wanted to. I believed that I had the ability to do. But when I started, about 6 months in, I had somebody ask me to come and help them be their head of marketing for this massive company in the US and Canada. And I knew that I wanted to start my own business and do this on my own and bet on myself. But I ended up taking this plan B, if you will, because of its what I thought was safety, clear revenue stream, all those things. And I was so upset on so many days and like just small things that were really bothering me. And I was like, what is this? Why am I so like, this is an amazing job with a huge salary, with a team, like everything that I would want as a marketer, like why with a fantastic CEO, like why am what is happening here? Like, why am I so upset about this? And what I got to through asking myself, what am I pretending not to know? What are these triggers trying to tell me? And going back to like, what was this here? Ultimately, it was actually that I didn't believe that I could do it. I didn't believe that I was good enough to bet on myself and run my own business. And I didn't identify as a founder. And I didn't identify that, like, I am a business owner. I am an entrepreneur. I was always working at someone else's business and doing really well at that. And so when I got to that, I was like, oh, this is just a story. I can do this. And I sat in this meeting with this very high level chief marketing officer of this very big company in the US. And I was listening to her and I was like, I can really? That's the okay. If that's what it takes to be at what I would usually have considered to be like the pinnacle of success in her, and this is her analysis of the situation. And I'm like, wow, why did I ever doubt this? Okay, I can go do this. This is what I need to do. And so I took to my journal and I wrote down, got underneath that belief that I just am almost good enough to do this, and realized, you know what? No, I actually have everything. And I wrote down, I can do hard things because, and I wrote down the evidence of why I can do those things. I can run my own business because I have an amazing attention to detail. I'm very organized. I have the will to push through anything, like all these things that I have done in my life. And then literally the next week I went to my boss and said, if you want to work with me, it will be on a consultant basis. And so you can hire me as a consultant, but as of this date, I will no longer be an employee. And yeah, and then from there, it's fascinating how fast things move. I got 3 other clients the next week. It just like blew up. But I hope that gives a little bit of context into the process. Is look for the triggers. Try to identify where that belief stemmed from, the past experience that you have been operating on top of, and then create the intention that you want. And this is something I'm still working. There are definitely still moments where I'm like, oh my God, can I actually run this business by myself? And going back to that evidence, that cookie jar of like, okay, yes, I have done this before. I have done elements of this, and continuing to repeat that belief system and revisiting it every 30 to 90 days is something that I have found at least can keep that momentum, especially when you have those moments of self-doubt.
That's incredible stuff, Kate. I really appreciate that. You know, the I just have this image of like ripping open, you know, the body and just kind of looking inside and saying, okay, what's real right here? What's going on? Okay, I'm having these emotions. I'm having these triggers. Okay, stop. Like, let's figure this out. So it's a real. You know, it's funny because I think as a performer, you know when you are not in sync,
Mhm.
right? And as a teammate to your partner, you know when you're not in sync. And so in the past, you've had to, let me stop. Let's get in sync. Let's figure this out. Well, when I'm an entrepreneur or an employee or something like that, sometimes I don't take that time to recognize whether I'm in sync or not, if this is
Mm.
flowing, if this is good, you know. So it's kind of interesting. Speaking of which, I was kind of curious about this. So here you are, you're at, you know, like you said, a national champion in 2 different countries and silver medals at the world championships, and you know, and then your career, as all athletes do, it ends.
Mhm.
And not to get into to why it ended, but I'm kind of curious, like what, because I know there's a lot of opportunities for figure skaters and ice dancers actually after they're done at the competition level. You can go into like Disney on Ice or this or that, or you know, these different shows and things like that. And obviously you had done that when you were 14, 15. You were part of a 16-person troupe. Like, so what you know, why did you not continue with skating?
Well, my retirement was forced. So I had a really major hip injury that
Mm,
ended up my career very rapidly. The doctors said you can either continue skating or you can walk when you're 30. Make a choice.
oof,
And so
oof.
I chose life, and the distinct. I was sitting in this school in Montreal, sitting on the 4th floor, and I had to call my coach and tell them like I can't do this anymore. Like, and it was so heartbreaking because my identity in that moment was just completely shattered. Like I was a figure skater. That is all that I thought that I was capable of doing in that moment. And so that is the reason why I did not continue with shows and things like that, because I physically couldn't skate anymore. But I didn't go back in an ice rink for 4 years after that moment.
Huh.
4 years, because I knew that if I did, I would just want to go back, and I felt like I had to.
Yeah, you loved it, right?
Yeah, and I felt like I had to just cut it and start fresh and rebuild who I was, and that came with a lot of anger. It came with a lot of a lot of internal, like, emotion and work, and times when I was like, "Who am I? I'm a student, I guess? Like, what did I do? I don't know." But the way that I worked through that was I was like, "Okay, if I can take all that I have done with skating, and I can take all the." I feel like I was very fortunate to have a lot of um, insight into these types of mental performance tools that most people never get access to or never even learn. And I was like, I have
Yeah.
this repertoire of tools that I've built on how to deal with high pressure moments. This is one. This is a high stakes, like, what do I do with the rest of my life moment? So one of the ways that I did that was I was fortunate to be in a marketing class, and we had to do these performances, like where you go and present your thing in front of class. And this girl beelined it for me at the end of class and said, "You need to do case competitions." And I was like, "Competition girl? Yes, sign me up." And so I channeled myself into this new form of competition, which was using my mind instead of my body. But I did that in a couple of different ways. So one of the areas that I used when I was skating was an alter ego. And so
Yep.
I had
Beautiful.
a very different persona that I was on the ice. And this is not, a lot of people think it's like fake it till you make it. It's not that at all.
Nope.
It is actually an identity and a version of you that already exists inside that you can open onto a different field of play. And it's activated by certain elements. For me, it was, I don't know if you can see it, there's like a little tiger back there. But for me, it was the combination of a tiger and I used to think Angelina Jolie was like the most beautiful woman on the planet. And so it was a combination of her and this tiger for her elegance and poise and how tigers are.
Didn't she play the tiger in Kung Fu Panda? Wasn't she?
I don't know. Is that true?
She did. She did. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
See, look at you, Kate Good, manifesting things. Look at you.
Incredible. Wow, I didn't know that. Anyways, but I combined those two elements for the aggression, but the grace, and the power, but the softness, that I felt that I needed to have on that ice. And so I was like, okay, who do I need to be in case competitions? Who do I need to be in this new version of life on this new field of play? Because I believe that our identities are also fluid. You don't just have one. You have many different ways that you can be and show up, whether you're at home, whether with your partner, and it's not that you are fake in any of them. They're just different elements of you that you can bring forward. So on that, in school and in marketing, I started to become this different version. When I pulled on, for me, it was always a pencil skirt. That was my activation. And I became this person who was decisive and strategic and could take immense amounts of information and distill them into how to make people move. And so it was this identity that I created for myself that helped me actually move through that transition of my life. And I felt that really expedited that process and made me realize that I have all of these different skills that I used as an athlete that are really applicable in the business world. And I have actually found now in my work with elite athletes and with executives, it's actually that blend. They really have a lot of overlap on how to deal with these high pressure moments, how to deal with teams, how to deal with setbacks, because ultimately that is what performance is about, right? We are all going to be faced with immense setbacks, obstacles from every direction. And how fast can you bounce back? Really, I think contributes to the success that you will have.
What are, as you've sort of shifted from athlete to executive and entrepreneur and owning your own business, what are the skills or the habits that you have, not that you don't do all of them, but what have you seen as the ones that help you most sort of in your professional title?
Yeah, we've talked about a few of them. I think the identity work is definitely one that a lot of people, I think someone that recently called it, Chris Walker called it frequency training, which I think is a really interesting perspective on it, where it is really about your identity, your beliefs, and your intentions, and getting very, very clear on that future version of you. And so that will be one that I think I did that as an athlete. So for me as an athlete, my future version of myself was winning an Olympic gold medal, winning a world championship. Like, who is that person? Who do I need to become today in order to get that? How do they act? They speak, they talk, they think. What are the things that they're doing? So getting really clear on that. But me as an entrepreneur, as a business person, or someone who just even wants to move up in their current role, getting really clear on your future self image, because you will never outperform your own self image. And so getting clear on who is that person? Who do I need to become? What do they believe? How do they think? What are their habits? What are the things they're doing every day? And how do I start to be her or him now? So that would be one of the things that I think most people don't think of when they think of, like, what are the things that apply from sport to. A lot of it is skills and mental stuff, but I feel like actually a lot of it is in identity, and really based in our belief systems and and who we believe that we are and who we need to become. So that would be the first thing I'd have people, or suggest people, to take a hard look at and get clear on, like sitting down and be like, okay, what is that for future version of me? What are they doing? Right? What are they doing every day? What are they thinking? So that would be the first. I then would use a tool like visualization to supplement that. So spending 3 or 4 minutes every day seeing yourself as that future version. I have a few guided visualizations that walk someone through that. If anyone's interested, send me a DM. Happy to send you that you can listen to. And I have found that really starts to reinforce that we talked about at the beginning, right? Your brain is a prediction machine. It wants to stay in what is familiar. And if you can start seeing that, I think the most important part of visualization that some people miss is it's not just the seeing, it's the feeling. The emotion is so, so, so powerful to make sure that you are rooting yourself in that sense of awe or gratitude or just excitement or whatever it is for you that you want to feel love, right? Like activating those emotions inside of you while you're seeing this future version that you're trying to create. And there's a lot of different types of visualizations. Most people know outcomes. So, like, what is the thing that you want to achieve? There's process. So, like, what are the steps that happen to that? When we talk about adversity, so seeing things maybe not go as this one, I am always cautious. I would usually always use that one once you've done visualization, you have trained that muscle a little bit, because some people it doesn't work well for them. That can take them the wrong way. Side note, there's creative visualization, where this can be really effective if you have injury, or if you have, let's say that you have a lot of like intestinal issues, or you're having back problems. Seeing the organ or your muscle actually heal, and seeing it pink and red, and like really getting creative with that thing healing.
I'm doing it right now. My back already feels better. Amazing.
There you go. There's a few different types that you can use throughout your day. And one of the other ones that's very interesting is explorative. So let's say that you wanted to sit down and needed to write a LinkedIn post, and you're just blocked and don't know what to write, is actually like seeing yourself writing it. What comes? What are you writing about? And sometimes that can actually really ignite a creative process. So that would be the second thing that I would bring over from my athletic career. The third would be evidence banking. And so for me, this is something I do now with all my clients, actually. I call it like the mental cookie jar. And I actually have them like buy a glass jar and some Post-it notes and stick it somewhere in your house that's visible, and start banking the moments. And they don't have to be big. It could be like, I spoke up in a meeting today. Amazing. Like, think about the things that you have done in your day that provide evidence towards progress, towards your effort, and not just the success, like, oh, I want a new client. This is about helping your brain look for the good. I call it finding the good. And you start writing those down and banking those, so that when you do have those immense moments of doubt, which we all do, and you constantly will, at least your brain can go to, wait, I have done pieces like this before. You go into your cookie jar, you take a cookie out. And I like that analogy, because usually for people, cookies are like warm and home and allows them to get back in that feeling. So those would be three that right off the top of my head.
That's great. That's good stuff. Well, listen, Caitlin, you've brought us the good. Boom, yourself.
So well done, Josh. So
Yeah,
well
thank
done.
you. Yeah, we're here for the dad jokes and the really obvious ones. But now this is awesome because you gave us a ton. So now this is our favorite part of the pod is we get to give back to you. This is called the Success Leaves Clues podcast. So we're gonna listen. We've been listening and talking to you now for a good part of an hour. And these are the things that Travis and I kind of took away from this conversation that allowed you to be highly successful. Travis, why don't you start?
Yeah. So Kate, thank you again. Even though you never said these two words, I kind of felt them coming out through your answers numerous times. Is your willingness to be vulnerable with your situation, right? So kind of honest with your situation, being vulnerable in your situation, but then to have the courage to adapt and to pivot and to challenge and to question and to just so much courage in not only shifting from one discipline to the next, but just your commitment to your growth and your habits and your routines. But there's so much vulnerability and courage in your story.
Wow, thank you.
Yeah, it's funny because Travis wrote a book called Confidence is Overrated. And so it was funny because I was going to say confidence, but courage is the right word. It is courage because you put yourself out there a number of different times as you've told your stories, like that isn't normal, which makes sense because you were at the elite of the world. And so it's pretty amazing. Yeah, courage is absolutely the right word there. I think also too, like there's a willingness for you to try things. We had Peter Smith, who was a head coach of a tennis program that was highly successful. He's like, I was always just willing to try stuff. Like there was no prejudgment to stuff. You were just like, okay, can it help me? Let's see if it helps me. Oh, it is working. Okay, let's go down it, right? And let's go down this rabbit hole. So how would we call it? I guess openness, right? Willing to learn, openness, like growth mindset.
Like curiosity.
We talked about growth mindset at the top of the pod when you weren't on, but yeah, like that is obviously a part of you too, which has helped you be highly successful.
Yeah. And again, just the commitment, right? Just the commitment, the commitment to your career, the commitment to your craft. And
commitment to your wedding. To your wedding, making sure
most of all,
no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Wedding planner, suck it up, find a way. Give me a damn umbrella. Let's go.
Oh, yeah.
It's interesting, Josh, what you just said, though. It reminds me of one, thank you for the acknowledgement, both of you. But maybe there's one last thing I can say around that. I call these intuitive hits. So they're these like little pings that you get, and they become easier to identify with time. But sometimes if you ever get that little feeling, you're like, I just should go for a walk, or maybe I should just like send that message. And a lot of the time we ignore them. And actually, the reason I got introduced to Limitless Minds was because I had this ping. And I was like, I read Trevor's book and it was like, I feel like I should just message him. And I went on LinkedIn and I direct messaged him and he responded back. And that's how I got introduced to DJ, and the rest is history. But I had this little inclination, and my suggestion for people is if you have these little intuitive things, follow them.
Yeah.
And as you start to follow them, more come and you become aware of all the opportunity that is in front of you. And so thank you for saying that, because it did remind me of these little, just these little intuitive hits that we so often ignore.
Yeah, I love that.
I love that too. So go ahead, Travis.
I was just going to say, Kate, for people who want to find you online and connect with you, what's the best way for them to do so?
LinkedIn, Caitlin-Good, and Instagram as well. The best ways. Please DM me. Happy to help in any way that I can.
And then if also too, feel free to connect through Limitless Minds as well. If you have any inclination that you want to bring maybe Kate into a big event and to have her talk to your entire company, please just hit us up at limitlessminds.com and we'll take care of it from there. We'll get Kate out there for you. Kate, you were amazing today. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I learned, I grew, I healed my back. It was spectacular. And all good stuff. For those of you who are not subscribed to the podcast just yet, please pound that subscribe button. And pound it. Hit it. Not only hit it once, like hit it 5 times, just so you're making sure that you have subscribed to the podcast.
Well, that means they're turning it on and off, Josh. Every time they hit it, they're subscribe,
really?
unsubscribe,
So
unsubscribe.
do it an odd number of times so it stays on.
Just hit it once. Just hit it once.
Okay.
Yeah.
Travis is a little bit more reserved than I am. He's in the Midwest. I'm still from the East Coast, so here's what it is. But thank you so much, Kate, for making the time for us. We truly appreciate it. And as Kate has proved throughout today's performance, you do not have to be sick to get better.
There we go. Thanks, Kate.